Welcome back. Plenty happening in Ghana and around the world. Want to bring you some highlights in our summary, Sandra.
Yes, Daryl, you know we've been talking about the home-based carrier for some time now, and the potential partner for the Aviation Authority. Yeah. But we have some good news tonight because Ethiopian Airline has been selected as a strategic partner for the proposed new home-based carrier. So we have the full story in our summaries tonight.
Ethiopian Airlines has been selected as the strategic partner for the proposed new home-based carrier. An MOU was signed on Tuesday at the ET's headquarters to signify government's undertaking to work with ET in establishing a new home-based flag carrier. Aviation Minister Joseph Kofi Adda signed on behalf of the government of Ghana, while Tawald Gebamariam, Ethiopia's chief executive officer, signed the MOU on behalf of the airline. A final agreement is expected to be signed before Christmas. The airline is also expected to start flying early next year. In preparation towards the lifting of the ban on artisanal and small-scale mining operations, the Lands Ministry is planning to roll out the Multi-Sectoral Mining Integrated Project MMIP. Land Minister Kwekwas Matreme said the project will hinge on three main pillars: statutory enforcement, social interventions, and technological adaptations. According to him, MMIP is also targeted at ensuring the use of appropriate, safe, and affordable technology in small-scale mining. In August this year, the government announced the roadmap for lifting the ban on artisanal and small-scale mining operations, which has been on effect since April 1, 2017. The total gold assayed by government at the Precious Minerals Marketing Company Limited, PMMC, from January to June this year is about 111,526 kilos, valued at over $2.1 billion. The Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Kwekwas Matreme, said this includes gold in transit from neighboring countries such as Burkina Faso, Mali, and Togo of about 4,877 kilos, valued at $159 million. He told journalists that plans are far advanced to bring other countries on board. To be able to document all gold exports in the country and apply the necessary taxation in enhancing government revenue, a directive was issued in 2016 that made PMMC the sole assayer of gold in the country.
All right, let's move on to tonight's story. Some members of the fishing community at Jamestown in Electoral are calling for proper resettlement following the demolition of buildings along the coast to make way for the establishment of a $50 million fishing port complex. So far, the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development says it is confident of creating about 1,000 jobs upon completion of this ultra-modern facility. Charles Aite has been engaging some residents who say their livelihoods have been affected as a result of the project.
A previously densely populated area of the fisherfolk. Now, just look behind me. The various fisherfolk that we used to interact with here at this premise have been moved all the way back to the other side ahead of the construction of a $50 million fish port complex. Of course, this is going to, according to government, create over 1,000 jobs for these individuals. We get to speak to them about what this means to them and, of course, their concerns so far when it comes to resettlement claims.
It's a busy fishing day here at Jamestown. Fishermen mending their nets after the day's catch. Some of them tell me even though they welcome the establishment of the Jamestown Fishing Harbour, they expect a proper resettlement plan. Jamestown is a densely populated area with fishmongers awaiting fish expeditions for their business. They tell Joy Business failure to resettle them properly could endanger their livelihood.
Fine. No water, no home, when you were left when the one tie qua, Major Kamame Yameba, no one echo. Kamea, 1 year or 2 in walk will be. Ona, Casio and Wabeko, water, a wahaw. No more than Netako now, will like a Luyanaka Wahoeko. She can't show cry in Bleba about you. Abonena, Kawaka, Bonena, my own no quality. Abona me ngowana bia ne wota waka wo me fe wota wo dangma anu kwali yake wo won pa fa na ta wo ko na ka wa pete Kawa wolefe. Kono funa neta wonefe be was no pen wo bi won be solle mo hala kan wo hala wale. Ni ba fe gba no ne ba cho ne ba na sika. Ne ka ba sabo ne ha wo. Ne fe ha wo.
The fishing port project is in 3 major components, which involves 100,000 cubic meters dredging harbor basin and shipping channels. The second component involves the construction of about 1,200-meter hydraulic structures comprising berths, seawall, and a breakwater. But fisherfolk fear the motive for its establishment could be defeated if the applied are not considered.
Already we do know the establishment of the Jamestown Fishing Port Harbour is yet to begin, but most of these fisherfolk here at Jamestown say much more needs to be done to improve their livelihoods and that of their loved ones. For Joy Business, I'm Charles Aite reporting.
Reporting from Charles Aite there. Now, the African Center for Energy Policy, ACEP, has welcomed the agreements by countries in the West African sub-region for the new $1.7 billion tariff on each standard cubic feet of gas transported. 1.7 tariff, rather, I should have said. Now, Executive Director of ACEP, Benjamin Boache, says the new rate will reduce the burden on power production in the sub-region.
Ghana has agreed to consider the new tariff proposal by the West African Gas Pipeline Authority for the sub-region. The rate, which has been adjusted downwards from $5 to $1.7 per standard cubic feet, has been considered after a series of deliberations between energy ministers from the West African sub-region. Initially, Energy Minister Peter Amewu urged the West African Gas Pipeline Company, WAPCO, to consider $1 for each standard cubic feet of gas transported to Ghana, a price he termed as very competitive. Executive Director of the African Center for Energy Policy, Benjamin Boache, said the reduction should help in making power available for less.
Anybody, it's not even just government, anybody going to the market to buy any product, you want the cheapest price possible. So government wanted to negotiate a cheaper price for gas transportation. And if you have a cheaper transportation tariff, that also influences how much you can charge even for power that is generated and any other industry that is using the gas. So you don't really even need a justification. What you need is to ensure that you get the cheapest price possible, for transporting gas. And I think that's what has really delayed, the discussion or the negotiation. But it is good to note that at least from the initial discussion of about $5 thereabout, they pushed it to $3, and now it's 1.7, which has been signed. So that is good for us, and it ensures that we do not compound the power challenges, because once the price is so high, it has to be fed into the tariff.
Unavailability of another infrastructure for gas transportation within the sub-region has left Ghana with no option than to negotiate with WAPCO. And
the consumers will have to pay for it. Already the gas is expensive. Our gas is expensive. So if you are paying so much to transport it, that also becomes an extra cost burden that has been borne by the consumer. So it's a workable figure to work with now. We don't have any competition, and there's only one pipeline, so we can't even look at competition. It's not. There's no other competition, and that's what even dragged it. If we had 2 pipelines, then the race to the bottom could have emerged.
The new tariff is expected to take effect in 2019.
All right, you're watching Business Live. Anytime she enters a space, she's able to spot what is wrong. It's this gift that has made Zoe Akumia a sought-after interior designer. Today on the Joy Business Van, the CEO of Zoe Creative Services speaks to us about her passion. We're on the road once again, going to meet the brilliant interior designer Zoe Akumia, CEO of Zoe Creative Services, who is on site and very busy. So Zoe, where are we going?
Okay, so this is a project that I'm helping to consult on. I wasn't instrumental in this building or anything. They've actually had it up for a number of years, and they've lived in for a while, but they wanted to finish upstairs. Wow. They had seen a couple of my works, so they decided to engage me.
Zoe has got an eye for what is beautiful. It's innate. However, she began to take it serious when she was in uni.
Anytime I entered a space, I knew what was wrong. I knew that this window shouldn't have been here. This door would be there. If the door was there, you could actually display a better painting there.
It was in 2003 when she had her twin boys that she decided to turn her passion into a business.
So I had a space for if you had like 2 children, maybe the boy could sleep up. So I started with the bunk bed concept, and then I fixed a typical baby's nursery. Then I had another setup for if you had 3 kids and they just had to share one room. Because in the early 2000s, most of the properties that were being developed, the Snit flats and all, they just had 2 bedrooms. So the parents were in one and the children were in one. And people used to complain about not having enough space. And I will find space anywhere.
At the early stages, it was not easy to convince people they needed to invest in enhancing the interior of their homes. But Zoe had a strategy to penetrate the market.
Sometimes they order just furniture from me. I'm like, no, this room needs to be painted. Otherwise, it would be like dressing up a child that has not had his bath. So they were like, no, I have money just for the furniture. And then I would use my money to paint the room and put up curtains, just so that I can take a good sellable picture to show to the next clients that look, it can actually look like this.
Investing her own money sometimes into decorating people's homes, Zoe does not regret. It has contributed to increasing her client base, and as she tells me, it is a difficult market because you are not guaranteed work all the time.
A typical day for me, it can be as calm as today that you've caught me to interview. It can be a very crazy morning where I set up like 5:30 a.m. because I have to hit like 3 different sites where there are ongoing projects. So depending on how many of those projects I am only consulting, i.e. telling my clients the deliberate steps and choices to make or helping them to pick the right tile. There could be other projects where it is my workers, my artisans, my professionals, and we are executing the job from start to finish.
Zoe has executed a number of projects and her work speaks for itself.
Most of them are private people who would want it to remain private. But we did Aqua's Place in Nema, which is being used as an Airbnb. So that is a commercial place. I've in times past done a few embassies and worked with a few diplomats here and there.
One of the highlights of Zoe's journey is hosting Ghana's first home makeover show, Changing Places, generating much interest. So where does she want to be in the next few years?
Typically when I see people being asked that question, I'm like, how would anybody know? You know, we could have the apocalypse tomorrow. So I simply want to build a small, efficient business. You know what I mean? The business has to be relevant all the time, and it has to be efficient. Our yes is our yes and our no is our no. If we say we'll finish your house tomorrow, your house has to be finished tomorrow. So I just want to be very effective and excel at what I do.
And Zoe Kumia is excelling. All right, and my takeaway from that conversation, you don't always have to strive to build a conglomerate. You can just build a small and really effective business. That's it for this segment of Business Live. There's plenty to come after this break.
You're welcome back to Business Live, and there's this story that's got every Ghanaian talking, and that's what we'll be treating tonight on our main story. So who would have thought that Ghanaians had not seen the last of the Ghana Electoral Commission logo change? Well, the current EC chairperson is actually directed that they revert to the original logo, and that is supposed to cost Ghanaians some 15,000 Ghana cedis. That may sound very small, but Business Live is asking, what will be the potential cost to not reverting to the original logo, and what is really the importance of logos in businesses? Inshirado is the head of talk leadership here at Multimedia and also a brand practitioner. Inshira, thanks so much for joining us on Business Live tonight. And so, first of all, let's look at the importance of logos to businesses in the first place before you go to the cost bit.
Well, in building every business or brands, be it service brands or brands that produce products that are tangible, it's important to have a certain touch point that people relate to the brand with. So if you look at Multimedia, for example, people interact with us via the content that we put out, or the people they meet who work here. But where they cannot interact with individuals or other touch points, the logo is the embodiment of what the business represents. So
it must reflect the business.
It must reflect the positioning of the business, the promise of the business, the promise being what the business stands for, why its reason for being, and it's embodied in the logo. So, for example, if you would compare what we have as the original EC logo with what we had
the new one now,
the new one, which is now the old one,
which people are referring to
exactly.
as Charlotte Osei logo.
That's right, the one that was done during Charlotte Osei's tenure. Right. It's very difficult to link the elements that are in that logo to the story of the Electoral Commission.
So are you saying it doesn't reflect what the Electoral Commission stands for?
Well, whoever designed that logo would have had a story to go with it. I personally don't recall hearing a story that was coherent enough for me to associate that with Electoral Commission, except to say that the text on there says Electoral Commission of Ghana. However, if you go back to what was before, which is now the one that Mrs. Mensah is asking the EC to go back to using, it's clear the coat of arms actually is a symbol that embodies our nationhood. You also have a shield which shows solidity and defense, and in the middle of that shield is a very clear ballot box with a hand casting the ballot. Tells you what they do. It's like it does what it says on the tin. If you look at logos, they always have a story that goes with them. For example, Amazon. The Amazon logo to most would look like is the text Amazon showing a smiley. But really, if you look at it carefully, it's an arrow that starts from the A to Z, which says from A to Z, from anywhere you are to anything you want, we pretty much can deliver that to you. And if you would look at Amazon's evolution over time, they've actually lived that promise. So when you look at the logo, it reinforces the notion that you have of the brand, what the brand builder wanted you to be able to walk away with. Look at Mercedes-Benz, for example. A lot of people see the three shiny spokes, but it's also a story. It is meant to tell the world that we strive for excellence on land, in the air, and on the sea. Federal Express is another example that you could look at. It's just two colors of blue and orange.
FedEx?
FedEx, yes.
Yeah.
You know, now FedEx, if you look at it closely, between the E and the X, you actually find that there's an arrow that's pointing forward. It's symbolizes the business's desire to be forward-thinking, to be thinking about anticipating what their customers and users are going to need in the future and being there to provide that. So every brand must have a story, and in that story has to be an embodiment that sums it all up, and for you to look at it and say, this is the story.
So clearly what you're saying is that the current logo that we are using, now we've been asked to reuse the old one, and so it means that what we were using before, the direction now, doesn't really reflect what the EC stands for. Now let's go to the cost. We actually told that it's going to cost some 15,000 cedis to reprint letterheads for the various districts and all that. But what would it have cost us if we had kept what Madam Charlotte Osei came to do?
You see, your logo can make or break your business or an institution, so that if you misrepresent the story of the brand, its positioning and promise and everything in a graphical expression, that does not speak to the values of the business and what it stands for, then there's a disconnect. You know, so imagine an organization like Multimedia that is supposed to show a lot of energy and vivacity, and we have a very dull graphic representation of who we are and what we represent. Now, in time, people will think of you less as a vibrant organization. So if you would look at some of the designs across Africa, if you look at the Seychelles example for their logo, it shows that it is for election purposes. Uganda, the U.S. toes the line to ensure that they use more of their national colors.
Well, Inshrados, thanks so much for having this conversation on Business Live. I'm sure it's a conversation that will continue in our homes. It's got everybody talking and the debate goes on. But that's how we wrap up tonight on Business Live. My name is Sandra Isinamapenu. Darokwa was here earlier for our stories. And for more news, do log on to myjoyline.com/business for more business updates. My name is Sandra Isinamapenu. Have a great evening.